All right. Hello, everyone. We're going to be going over exam 2 in preparation for exam 3. Get it started. So, we're first going to do a stat breakdown for exam 2 before we get into it. We're going to review the exam. We're going to go over the questions, the answers, what exactly we were looking for. And then we're going to do a little brief, little essay exam 3 pointer on how exactly you should be preparing for that exam. So here are the stats. Um, these are the scores for each of the questions. You have the average right there. It was an 88. Pretty good, down from the first exam, which was a 94, but I actually saw somewhat higher grades for this one. I think maybe it was just pooled in the middle a little bit, but we had a couple 100%, which was really good. 100%. So, this was pretty good. Uh, Obviously, the course material is getting a little bit harder, so maybe it was a little bit harder for certain people, but I'll look at question 1, question 5, and question 6 a little bit and see where maybe we went wrong, but let's get into it. So, first off, what are the three types of representation and how do they relate to each other? Um, we were looking for descriptive, symbolic, and substantive. Descriptive is the extent to which the characteristics of a representative corresponds with the general characteristics of his or her constituency. The people who elected you, how exactly do you represent them on an identity basis? Whether it be, if if Irvine had a whole bunch of single moms and they elected Katie Porter, that would be descriptive representation. They see themselves in her. She's a single mom. She was elected to Congress. Um, if people, if you have a very Hispanic or a high populated Latino district and they elect a Latino representative, then that would be descriptive representation. It's being uh, you are electing someone based off of the implication of, a shared perception or shared political experience based on, in this case, it would be ethnic identity. In the case of Katie Porter, it would possibly be, marital identity or spousal parental identity. There's a lot of identities that you can use in descriptive representation. Usually, ethnicity is the more prevalent one. That's why a lot of gerrymandering efforts look at race as a factor for gerrymandering. But yeah, descriptive representation is one of the bigger ones. As you can see, it's a little MSNBC screen grab. Representation matters. Celebrating Hispanic heritage. There's been a very big push to uh, make sure that Latino voters in America feel represented because they are a quickly growing voting bloc, and it's more of a it's politically beneficial to target certain voters, and the best way to do that would be to put forth a candidate who, looks like them and can empathize with their social, economic, political, cultural plight. For symbolic representation, it is the extent to which constituents trust and accept their representative and the legislative institution as a whole. Um, a simplified example of this would be if a candidate is putting forth a very patriotic propaganda or portraying themselves as, like the most American, kind of towing the line between, that maverick iconography. I think John McCain really really capitalized on that. It's essentially just, you know, seeing what is a salient identity or iconography within the voting bloc that you're trying to rouse and rally, that you're trying to make turn out for you, and just kind of harping on that. Good example, Republican candidates run on patriotism. Donald Trump hugs flags, and there's a lot of very hard American iconography within a campaign for conservative candidates. So uh, it's symbolic to a degree, not necessarily as ingrained as descriptive representation, since anyone can uh, see themselves in a flag or in the ethos of a nation and run on that. It's much more, I guess, malleable of an image, but yes, symbolic representation. And then we get to substantive representation, which is the extent to which representatives advocate for policies that benefit their constituents. If I am a veteran and I have a representative who, you know, has not held any military position, is not a veteran, does not have any extensive family who is a veteran, however, they champion for, the expansion of VA benefits or the expansion of the GI Bill or benefits to veteran dependents or spouses, then they are putting forth substantive policy wins that benefit me as a constituent, as a veteran. Um, it is similar to descriptive, only you're looking for the output as opposed of the input. Usually, one would hope that an example of descriptive representation will lead to substantive representation due to the sharing of a certain experience. Um, that doesn't always work out, but substantive representation is kind of the end all to be all. You want policy that benefits you. Sometimes just having someone who looks like you is enough. Other times, take for instance black women. They will definitely put forth a black candidate, and even more so a black woman candidate. But let's say there's a candidate who, creates a small business fund for minorities of color, minorities, female minorities, or people of color, women of color. That is going to be a substantive policy outcome that that candidate can run on, and it's going to rally voters. So that is what we were looking for the first question. On to the legal side. Justiciable is the actual case of controversy between two parties. It has to actually amount to some kind of disagreement. Standing, does the disagreement or does the lawsuit actually reflect an injury being caused? Was there harm done to a certain party? And mootness, was this unable to be resolved outside of a court? Did you need the court's assistance in order to resolve this dispute? Um, just short and sweet, that's what we're looking for in terms of description. If it was anything remotely like that, you got points. The final part, why are these important concepts concerning the Supreme Court? Obviously, the Supreme Court has a very high bar. That could be a joke somewhere. A very high bar in terms of what cases they are willing to review and seek dissent or seek support for. Um, for a case to go before the court must agree that the case is justiciable and has standing and is not being moot. So, justiciable is the umbrella term, but it has to have standing and not be moot. Civil servants, what are they? They are federal bureaucrats who are not political appointees. They are the congressional staff. They are the people who help out senators and Congress people and in your governor's office, people who were not politically appointed to be there, but are essentially career officials who help in the federal bureaucracy. This is good because it decreases corruption, increases effectiveness, um, makes the bureaucracy function very uh, well-oiled machine-like. Um, in a lot of instances, when you saw Donald Trump gutting a lot of programs and things like that, usually it was the career officials, not the partisan appointees, who were the ones actually, you know, making these institutions, what's the word? Inflexible, I guess could be used. So they are the ones who are steadfast and make sure that certain institutions do not bend to political influence, even if you do want to sow the seeds of corruption into an agency, or you put in a yes man, which many presidents have done in the past for certain agencies. It is the career officials, the civil servants, who push back on that corruption. For sure, especially the inspectors general. They are the I guess not really the auditors, but they are the gatekeepers for corruption and things like that in certain agencies. Um, Civil servants are hired on merit. Uh, you cannot pay a whole bunch of money or donate a whole bunch of money to a candidate and then be, uh, you know, shuffled in as a career official into a certain role. They they are not just supporting of the winning political candidate, so hopefully they are technically apolitical. Occasionally they're not. Sometimes it's just based off of the job that you need to not be. But yeah, essentially they, you know, corruption, apolitical, run the day-to-day operations, things like that. They make the bureaucracy function in an efficient manner that is not subject to, bias and uh, volatile political affiliation. What is the modern presidency? Um, Short and sweet, seeks to lead Congress, connects the American public, presides over an enormous executive branch. Also, it began with, I believe in the text, it was Franklin Roosevelt. I believe that is the answer that most people gave. Definitely, if someone had examples, I guess I would say Nixon is a good one. Bill Clinton is an acceptable one. Let's see, who else? Who else? Reagan. Reagan is a very good example, only he purposely did not have the third bullet point, the enormous executive branch, just based off of, you know, the conservative governance of the executive branch. It's all around small government, and Reagan did introduce the concept of small government into conservatism, and we still have it today. Um, our current, well, I guess not our current GOP, but there's a lot of roots from Reaganism and Reagan's economic policy and things like that. So those are good examples. A lot of people had very good examples. This is the bare minimum that we were looking for. Would term limits be good for Congress? And this, I saw some people write about both state and federal government in answering this, and both of those were, I guess, acceptable. But in terms of the class material that you should have been pulling from, definitely Proposition 140, 140 in California should have been mentioned somewhere in your response. That led to loss of faith in the government and politics on the state level. Uh, it moved away from a professionalized model of Congress to a more delegate model of, oh, this person is just a mouthpiece, not really a legislator. Um, it does increase democratic responsiveness because if there's a term limit, then someone can't just be in there for years and decades and centuries. There's a lot of old people in government, and they are steadfast in their resolve to keep on running for re-election. And as long as people are, uh, I don't know, apathetic enough, as long as voters don't turn out enough for these positions, for these elections, then they're going to remain in there. Then you get a lack of representation. You get an old white guy supporting or being a delegate for a group of, I don't know, young Hispanic kids. And at that point, there's not really any representation, especially if there's no substantive representation, then usually someone gets primaried at some point. People get mad enough and things change. Uh, Also was looking for a professionalization somewhere in the answer. Um, Again, that's just, instead of having part-time congressional delegates and representatives who, have to juggle careers and maybe aren't very specialized and don't have much expertise and are just there to either collect a check or to grease their pockets. A funny story, actually, a lot of southern states who don't have professionalized governments or congresses, they have um, gosh, I think some of them actually have salaries of like 17,000, so you have to have um, another job. And in that instance, if you want to run for Congress, but you don't get paid a lot because it's an unprofessionalized Congress in your state, who do you think is going to run? Is the single black mother going to run? Is the young person who hasn't had much of their career and doesn't have a whole bunch of money to rely on going to run for Congress as their job? You're going to get rich people who have a lot of time in their hands in the government. So that's why professionalized governments are kind of seen as, the archetype of government that we need to move toward. Um, Negative effects of term limits. Many people had very good answers. Negative effect, Congress is full of amateurs when you have term limits. People don't cultivate enough skills, and even if they do, by the time you've cultivated them, your term has run out. Um, and that can lead to either no effective policy because of the skill level or just because of the high turnover. What if we changed professors every week? Will we have a very, good class with a lot of continuity? No, not really. Uh, Benefits of term limits: no corruption, technically. Uh, People can still, as I said, you know, rich people with a lot of time on their hands who just go into Congress because they can afford to do it. Sometimes there can be corruption, but that's a supposed, in theory, on paper benefit of term limits. People don't stay in there long enough to, you know, get insider trading and sell stocks based off of COVID news and um, write copious amounts of books on legislating and make back end deals with the NRA, things like that. Also, a benefit of term limits: representation, because, well, I guess that also is a thing where it's representation due to turnover in theory. Um, you could just get a cycle of rich people going in and out of your Congress. So not only do you have amateurs, but you have exclusively rich people, and it's a revolving door. So, a lot of different takes on this, but there are both negative and beneficial effects for term limits. Okay, here is the big one. Examine the purposes of the Electoral College. Why did the framers create this institution? To what degree is it necessary? And what are some of the suggestions for altering or abolishing it? So, Electoral College is the second step to electing a president. You have the popular vote that is done at the state level. States are in charge of their own elections, and then it gets even more distilled down to the county level. But the state secretary, the Secretary of State is the one who ratifies and approves of certain election results. They are the ones that facilitate the election. I'm sure some people remember in 2018 when Brian Kemp, who is now governor of Georgia, was running against Stacey Abrams, and he was simultaneously the Secretary of State. Uh, so you're running the election that you are running in. You're organizing the election that you're a part in, that you're a candidate in. So it raises concerns, but I'm digressing. The purpose of the Electoral College is just to act as a roadblock for the popular vote, because framers did not trust the misinformed and susceptible to Facebook meme disinformation public to make electoral decisions on their own. So they created the Electoral College. Of course, the context has changed in the time since the framers created that institution, but that was the reason why. They didn't trust people to uh, make a good faith effort to actually learn about candidates and choose the person. Um, they kind of shifted the blame more towards the candidates, saying, "Hey, candidates could come in and manipulate people's decision and come into power, and then pull uh, autocrat, despot, dictator move and just stay in power forever, and then America is no longer a democracy." Um, so that's what they wanted to not have happen. Uh, the Electoral College has since then kind of gone astray from its original purpose. So the way it works, you have the popular vote. You win in a state, you win the majority of the popular vote in a state, and then we assume that all of those, in a winner-take-all system, that all of those electoral votes will go to whoever won that state. So California, 52 electoral votes. Biden won by however much. Doesn't matter how much he won by, just means that he won, and he wins those 52 electoral votes. Texas, which I think has 38 electoral college votes. Um, Biden didn't do that bad in it. um, Texas is quickly becoming a very purple-ish state. I think he got 46% of the vote in Texas. It's just that Donald Trump got the majority, so Donald Trump got all of the Texan uh, electoral college votes. So that goes to him. In a lot of instances, this is seen as a broken system because, I mean, going back to 2016, what was it? Like a couple tens of thousands of votes decided the presidency based on the Electoral College, and it resulted in an upset. Uh, the past two elections was won by a Democrat per the popular vote. However, because of the Electoral College, it was, of course, a Republican and then a Democrat with Trump and then Biden. So it has come under a lot of scrutiny because of this. I'll mention now that in your answer we were looking for an example, even if you just briefly mentioned either Clinton or Trump or Gore or Bush. I believe you got full points, or even if you just uh, you know, mentioned an instance of the Electoral College being a deciding factor within an election. But yes, we were looking for an example. I believe it even said have an example, even if it didn't. For these essay questions, make sure that you're putting examples. Don't just, spout whatever, rehash whatever talking points. Definitely have examples to back up your arguments. At least for the big ones, at least for the very long answer essay questions. Moving on to the alternatives or abolishing it. Um, you're not gonna abolish the Electoral College. I'm sorry. Even if we did instate popular vote, I don't care how many Europeans scratch their heads and say America's doing something weird over there. Electoral college is not going to get abolished in this current political environment. It's just not. Um, no plans to scrap it. So, popular vote, technically out of the question, but we can present an alternative. There is the split vote model, which is a proportional amount of the electoral college votes for each state goes to the candidate who won. I believe, oof, Maine, I think, does it, and Nebraska, perhaps. So they're like at-large districts where they actually split up their electoral votes. Um, the people who vote in that district is voting for one electoral college vote. So um, it's not necessarily winner take all because it's just one vote. It's just a thing of breaking up the electoral votes. Um, Mind you, at any point, the people chosen by each of the states to cast the electoral college votes could be I'm forgetting the term. I think it's faithless voter or faithless elector. They could vote for whoever they want. Um, I think in 2016 we had a couple which chipped away at Donald Trump's electoral college victory. I think it included one of the first indigenous peoples to be awarded an electoral college vote. I'm forgetting their name though. Look it up. Another solution, disenfranchisement. Fix it for minorities and other individuals who have a disadvantage when voting for the presidential election. Gerrymandering could be, litigated within the Supreme Court of the United States, which it has already been, but it's on a case-by-case basis. Limit disenfranchisement, let people vote. If people vote, then you have higher turnouts and your popular vote is a little bit more true to form to the electoral college. That's the whole thing. We don't want, someone winning the popular vote by millions of votes, but then losing the electoral college, because then it's not really the institution is not working well at that point. Especially if it results in a very significant upset, which, I mean, the future is unwritten. We could have another instance of that since it's already happened twice in the past 20 years. It's just something that we have to reconcile with. Redistricting. Redistricting so that there's a majority minority districts. It helps minorities who are in small states who may be pigeonholed into just one district participate in the Electoral College. Um, Again, certain states do break it up based off of district. They have at-large districts who do vote on one Electoral College vote. So a lot of these are alternatives. Bottom line, as long as you had something there that was, remnant of a solution or opinion or stance on the Electoral College, then you got the point. If you had examples, you got the point. If you talked about what the framers, you know, what their original intentions were for Electoral College, you got the point. All right, moving on to exam 3 prep. Um, Obviously, I do not write these exams. That is Dr. Lovato who writes the exams. I just grade them on occasion. However, I will say I do see a lot of trends with the two previous exams and how exactly you can, uh, you know, really prepare well for an exam without even knowing the questions. If anyone has come to my office hours, usually before an exam, we go over essentially the entirety of the unit materials, and I even go even longer if I have time. I think one time we had like a 3 hour office hours. Actually, a couple times we had 3 hour office hours. But review the content, read the textbooks. Do not read the PowerPoints and then just think that you know everything that's in the textbook. You don't know everything that's in the textbook. Uh, Use the PowerPoints to guide your way through the reading, seeing what you need to harp on in the textbook, because obviously there's a lot of dense material. Uh, you should be reading everything, but you don't need to necessarily, compute and cognitively assess everything within the textbook. Use the PowerPoints to guide your way through the reading so that you know what exactly to focus in on, what to hone in on. Understand the content. Don't just read it so it goes out one ear. Have a conversation with yourself about it. During office hours, come to me, say like, "Hey, let's talk about this chapter." Even if it's not a specific chapter, I can usually talk about any kind of concept. Both me and Dr. Lovato, you know, we're in this enough to have significant schooling on it, so we can probably talk about whatever concept you want to talk about. When writing your exam essays, have a thesis that has a supporting argument that uses examples. Again, for some of the short answer, you don't necessarily need to have examples unless the question specifically says so. If you just, if it says define this and what is this, if you defined it and said what it is, then that's it. You got your points. Make sure that you're hitting everything. Don't say, like, oh, electoral college, it's the college that elects people. That's it. That's not answering the whole question. What did the framers do with it? What is it for? Why is it criticized? Things like that. Make sure that you're answering not just the whole question, but that your answer has a sense of totality to it. Make sure that um, if if in an answer we're looking for three main things, make sure that you have those three main things. And the way that you know that you have those three main things is by reading the textbook to know what those three main things are. So you can have it in your answer. Um, did you respond to the call of the question? Some people in this last exam did not really answer the question, and you lost points because of it. And it's really hard to see someone try really hard with rambling, uh, thinking that they're answering the question, speaking in platitudes, and not really putting forth a substantive and uh, pointed answer. I think that they're going to get all the points. You're not going to get all the points. You're not answering the question. You're just kind of like you're beating around the bush. And I'm gonna read the question and be very confused, or read your answer and be confused as to what exactly you thought your answer was doing. Um, uh, Make sure that you're drawing evidence from the entire universe of resources within the course. We have, a lot of readings, a lot of lectures, a lot of materials, videos, etc. Make sure that you're using everything to inform your answer. Um, this was actually pulled straight from the exam. This is an essay prompt. The prompt. Your response should be written as if you're responding to the prompt. Don't go off into, rambly nothingness that just makes your answer look long. Make sure that it actually has substance to it. Don't write in bullet points. Write in complete, and I'll add there, coherent sentences. Your sentence can be complete, but not coherent. Um, Make sure that you're writing in paragraphs. A lot of people just kind of had a block of text. I wasn't too hard on you when it was just a block of text, but make sure that I can actually see the progression of your argument or of your response that's broken up. Going back to the electoral college question, I would have had like, boom, first paragraph. This is what the electoral college is. This is what the framers intended. Second paragraph, maybe expanding on, the framers didn't trust people. That's why we have electoral college. Disinformation, Facebook memes, election 2016 example. Boom, there. Alternatives, solutions to the electoral college, split vote system, disenfranchisement, yada yada yada. Make sure that it's broken down into paragraphs where it's self-contained arguments that make sense when it's grouped into each other. And of course, no copying pasting from other sources. Original material, you guys are good on that. Everything seemed not too copied and pasted. I know that a lot of people run it through a spell checker and it comes out as like a different font on my end. That's fine as long as you're not, making insane grammatical errors. I mean, obviously that's not going to make or break your score, but just make sure that you're hitting all the points for some of these essay questions. All right, and that is about it. Here is my contact information. Obviously, you guys can email me. Some of you message me on Canvas. I have both Canvas and Outlook on my phone, so I should see the notification. If I don't respond, then definitely try either another method or do it again. Maybe I'm just not paying attention. Um, Come to my office hours. It's Monday. Uh, Mind you, I mean, I love my office hours. A lot of you come, you guys have questions, super engaging. I am down for appointments. However, I am a busy man. I have a full-time job. I have this, obviously, TA. And I also go to school at Fullerton as a grad student, so we're ramping up towards finals. Luckily, I don't have any like actual exam finals. It's just papers that I can do, at 3 in the morning or whatever. But if you have any appointments, please don't let it be like last minute, because I may not be available to cater to you, and I want to do anything in my power to make sure that you're comfortable for these exams. Obviously, the quizzes are very good resources to go back on. I will definitely explain whatever concepts. I think for Unit 3, it's I think kind of my wheelhouse with some of these. Let me look at the syllabus, but it's like political parties, interest groups, all of that. I'm very, very well versed in that, so definitely uh, reach out to me. Like public opinion, voter salience on certain issues, uh, social movements, parties, elections. I On LinkedIn, I literally have elections in my bio. Like, please ask me questions if you don't get a certain concept or anything like that. I will definitely help you out. Exam 3 should be on December 10th, so about a week from now. I'm recording this at 1 a.m. on December 3rd. So, yeah, spend the next week contacting me as much as possible. Read the textbook, organize your thoughts, make sure that you can, recall information as quickly as possible, and tell me if you need anything. Good luck, guys.